Alright, so good afternoon everyone. Welcome po sa ating day 2 ng composting. We're just waiting for the other to go ahead and join this meeting po. So let's just wait for them. Let's give them until exactly 1 p.m. and mag-start po tayo ng exact 1. To those who are having issue with the screen, yung screen sharing or yung audio, just let me know dun sa chat. And also yung mga nagtatanong kung available na yung ating Zoom replay day 1 and screenshots of the PowerPoint. Available na po silang lahat sa ating Google Drive. I'm gonna paste it here. There you go. So, i-secure nyo lang po yung copy na yan. Diyan nyo po ma-review yung screenshot ng PowerPoint ng day 1 and also ng Zoom replay.
Ma'am Van, pa-check ako ng audio.
Yes, sir. Loud and clear po.
Loud and clear. Thank you, Ma'am Van. Okay, so 1 more minute left po, and we will be starting our day 2 of the webinar on composting po. So I think it's 1 o'clock, so we're going to start our webinar na po, no? Kumusta po yung audio sa lahat? Okay naman po. Clear?
Clear po, sir.
Okay, so welcome to our second day ng webinar po natin on composting. And just a recap, yesterday we talked about the microorganisms at saka yung carbon to nitrogen ratio, no? Why it is important for us to be able to determine if it is fertilizer grade ang ating compost na ginagawa. Kasi we might just be adding soil amendments to our plot or ating mga pananim, no? So, once again, to introduce myself, my name is Keith Hernandez, natural farming practitioner, speaker, and trainer for organic agriculture. So, what can be composted? Yan po yung pinaka-main topic natin ngayon. Marami kasing nag-iisip na baka hindi pwede or okay na to, compost ko na lang kaagad, basta nabubulok. So, almost anything that comes from the ground, galing po sa lupa, pwede po siya i-compost. Okay? Kasi organic matter po siya. So the topic for today is the materials that can be composted. And then we have the organic solid waste, yung mga green waste po natin, animal manure, and beddings. As well as human waste and sewage sludge. Paano ba siya pinaprocess at ginagawang abono, no? So tomorrow, dun po tayo magsisimula sa ating mga technologies. May mga industrial scale, vermicomposting, composting toilets, black soldier fly, bokashi, and other systems at household levels po, as well as related technologies. So for further questions, you can always contact me here at the information listed. So, materials that can be composted. Ano po ito sila? Composting is a process used for resource recovery. If you search resource recovery kasi, yan po yung pinaka-common na or another term natin when we create a compost. So resource recovery is using waste as input materials or panibagong materials, raw materials, to create valuable products as new inputs. Nagiging bago na siya at pwede natin mapagpirahan o magamit ulit. So the aim is to reduce the amount of waste generated, thereby reducing the need for landfill space. Hindi na tayo kailangan na magtapon at itambak lang, no? And this will optimize the values created from waste. So, ano po ba itong mga organic matter nito? So, organic matters is disposed materials that are organic in nature, such as plant materials, food scraps, paper products, and can be recycled using biological composting and digestion. So, dalawa pala itong klase. May biological composting and may digestion din. And this is to decompose the organic matter. So, dito po sa picture natin, makikita po yung mga different na pwede natin gamitin. We have the food waste, 100% yan. All the food waste scraps natin, meat, fish, dairy, fruit, vegetable, shells, bones, grains, or any and all food. Of course, we need to take note that if we add chemicals to it, mas hindi pure ang ating compost. But it will still be taken out as per our previous discussion, yung mga ano po natin, no? Yung mga waste po natin, yung toxins and pathogens, mga masasamang chemicals is na-eliminate naman po siya or napapawala lang po. Now, we also have our yard or plant waste. So, plants, flowers, mga landscape vegetation, yung soils po natin na hindi nagamit, this can all be done, including mga sa Europe, sa US, gamit sila pine trees, no? For their Christmas tree, pwede yun. As long as it is untreated wood scraps. Bakit untreated? Marami kasi naglalagay ng mga malatayon, na mga tar, to treat or to prolong the lifespan of their wood. Meron naman sa sulfur, no? So, this can be recycled then or this can be composted. And of course, yung mga paper waste po natin, this is coffee filters, paper towels, you name it, pwede po sila. Ang hindi ko lang masyadong as pinark po natin na question, I'm still looking for people that are actually already starting to compost the face mask ng mga kagrupo natin, and they have done the study. As of now, it's really a biological waste that that is considered hazardous. So talagang iba yung pagtanggal natin, no? Or pag-dispose natin as of now. So, we have papers, eggshells, fruit, vegetables, squash, lahat po yan. Pwedeng-pwede. Kahit na yung mga tirang pasta in some cases. So, yung pag-compost natin, of course, we are actually looking at the result. So, yung resulting organic matter natin can be used as mulch or compost for agricultural and landscaping purposes po. In addition, waste gases from the process such as methane can be captured and used for generating electric and heat. So CHP po tawag dyan na term, combined heat and power or cogeneration, para ma-maximize natin. So meron po tayong mga technology that we are actually using for creating from bio-waste, nagiging electricity siya, nagiging gas, nagiging filtration system, at saka heat source. So the intention of biological processing is to control and accelerate nature process of the composting of organic matter. So kanina, dalawang klase. Meron tayong sinabi na this can be done through the process of biological composting. Yung digestion po mamaya i-discuss din natin. So usually for CHP or combined heat and power, that is with the digestion na po. We use a slurry and a digester. So once we have the digester, that can produce the gas, yung pwede po natin gamitin pangluto. Okay? So yesterday, I think there was a question, biomass. Ano ba talaga itong biomass na sinasabi? So biomass is it's actually emerging as one of the most important source of renewable energy. So it refers to any plant or animal matter in which it is possible to reuse as a source of heat or electricity. So katulad sa ibang mga bansa, they actually use yung mga farm waste like bagasse for sugarcane. And it is processed para gawing charcoal and gawing biogas. The charcoal will be heated para mag-produce ng electricity. The gas will also help in this. So it comes from everything: agricultural crops resources, sewage, municipal solid waste, animal residues, industrial residues, and saka yung forestry, yung mga chops and residues, or crops, I mean to say. So in other words, organic matter or organic material or natural organic matters refers to the large sources of carbon-based compounds found within the natural and engineered terrestrial and aquatic environments. Pwede po siya galing sa tubig, pwede din po galing sa lupa. So all natural po yan. Now, there are two main functions served by soil organic matter. One of them is to act as a storage house or a storehouse of all plant nutrients, since it is largely derived from plant residue. Then another niya is the humus absorbs and retains nutrient in the form that can be availed by plants. As mentioned yesterday po, yung plant natin, hindi naman na puro tubig lang yan. Actually, they create their own food. The plants actually don't need extra food. They create their own food through photosynthesis. Ang kinukuha po natin sa lupa is yung additional nutrients like minerals. So there is around 16 essential elements that is needed by the plants in addition to the food that they're creating. So, sa plant nutrition, ito na po yung pinag-uusapan natin kahapon pa, no? So the organic matter is a powerhouse of nutrients that are released into the soil. So yung nutrients na re-release sa soil pag na-decompose na yan. And it was found that the nutrient release majorly occurs in the spring or summer during sa mga maiinit na panahon. And pag lumabig ang panahon, dyan siya nag-accumulate, which can be utilized by our microbes, mga mikrobyo natin, para lumabas po siya at ma-absorb sa ating mga root tips as nutrients. Now, another benefit niya is yung soil structure aggregation. Ano tong aggregation? Tumutulong siya para mapudpod o gumanda yung lupa. So, organic matter results in clumping of soils to form aggregates. Soil aggregates improve the structure of the soil and consequently, its water retention. Mas porous po siya, mas nakaka-retain siya ng tubig, hindi bumabagsak agad kasi hindi nagsaslide. So, dito sa pictures po natin, these are actually conditions, no? Yung good condition, moderate condition, at saka poor condition. And usually sa mga farm plots, lands natin, nasa poor condition na. Matigas na yung sa ibabaw at sometimes even yung pinakailalim is hindi na nakaka-absorb ng tubig. So ang nangyayari is if you use chemical as your abono, synthetic chemical as ang abono natin, source of nutrients natin sa tanim, pag umulan, because there is no water retention, hindi siya nakaka-absorb yung absorption capacity ng soil natin, ang mangyayari is nawawash out lang yung nutrients yan. So, that can also still lead to nutrient deficiency in plants, which we will cover more, no? So, eto po yung different soil structures natin. Usually, ang pinaka-bulk ng soil structure natin is the clay. Then we have the silty clay, the silty clay loam, yung silt loam, at saka yung silt. Silt is yung parang nakaka-absorb din siya. Meron din tayong clay loam and this is ang hinahanap talaga yung sandy loam na klase. So sa structure na to, ito yung mga percentage kasi na dapat natin i-hit when we have our plants. Dito po tayo parati sa sandy loam ang magandang na area. It's not nakaka-absorb siya, tama-tama yung absorption, tama-tama yung water retention, tama-tama naman yung drainage niya. And that is what is achieved when we actually compost properly. Kasi if you have the clay, napupondo lang po yung tubig, hindi nakakalusot, no? So, when we have our particles, ganito po yan. We have our gravel, sand, silt, clay, silt, tsaka sand, no? Makikita nyo ang sizes niya iba't iba. This will actually be like a guide in which you can determine anong classification ng soil ninyo. If it's too big, puro bato, nakikita kagad yan. Kung sandy naman siya, medyo porous siya. Alam naman natin kung ano yung tsura ng buhangin, no? Kung silt po, ito po yung mga nasa parang kanal ang dating. It's soft, and it can retain water. Ang problem, nawawash out siya. And that's why a good combination of soil is actually good. Advisable, no? So, you can check more on this. So, sa soil structure natin, ganito po yung nangyayari. Supposed to be, ganito yung nangyayari. We have the organic matter or humus on the top, before sa topsoil. Then afterwards, we have the topsoil. Then subsoil and regolith. Then afterwards, the bedrock. Ang problema is wala na si humus, nawala na yung organic matter kasi hindi natin binabalik. And we also don't have the topsoil even. In the United States, tonelada ang nawawala na topsoil every year due to the drought nila. Like, for example, yung sa mother ko, they're in with water restrictions right now in California. Hindi sila pwedeng magdilig kasi may water restrictions sila, may drought po sila doon. And yung lupa nila ngayon is really just subsoil. So what they usually do is they have their own compost bin to really just plant. And I'll share that to you tomorrow, no, sa session natin on the different technologies. Now, another thing na napag-usapan natin, pH, yung pH level or acidity, it actually affects the availability ng ating mga nutrients. Makikita po natin na the more alkalinic and the more acidic ang lupa, dun siya nakukuha yung ating mga nutrients. And that is why the best time or the best type of pH level po natin would be around 5 to 5.5. Yan po yung best. Kaso lang, low naman siya sa calcium. Pero maganda yung ibang nutrients na nabibigay. As well as yung sa iron. Pag sobrang baba naman, wala po siyang iron. Kung medyo mataas, that's the time that you can get the calcium and molybdenum. So, pag mababa naman, we're trying to get the iron, manganese, at saka zinc. So copper, boron, sulfur, magnesium, phosphate, potassium, and nitrates will always thrive in a 5.5 to 6.5. So yan yung ideal ng soil. Of course, yung lime na sinasabi ng mga tao, lime actually raises the pH. Pangpataas po yan. So it's difficult to lower pH because there are technologies to lower it. And we actually have that in some of the other webinars that we provide. Like, for example, yung sa Jadam, no? They actually have a Jadam sulfur solution that you can add. But pag sobra namang baba ng sulfur level nyo, okay lang kung acidic yung lupa natin dyan. But if sobrang baba naman siya, you need to add the calcium. And that's why some go for synthetic, some go for organic with this method. So, anong benefits niya? Another benefit or the third benefit is the water retention. I've been talking about this today, no? The organic matter has the capacity to absorb and retain water equivalent to up to 90% of its weight. Isipin natin, no? Kung may 1 kilo ka na soil, kaya niya mag-absorb, ma-retain niya ang 90%. And this is what we actually teach composting because this will lessen the amount of water that you will be using. As most of the water held by the organic matter is absorbed by the plants, whether water absorbed by clay is unavailable to plants po. Yung nasa putik po natin na tubig, hindi po yan na-absorb kaagad ng lupa natin o ng tanim natin. So that's why it is nice to have the structure na ganito, that humus or organic matter is actually available on the topsoil or ibabaw po. Now, certain types of soil organic matters can hold up to 20 times their weight. Meron po yan. And that's according to Rikowski, 2005 book niya, at saka kay Hudson in 1994. Those are two specific books that mention this. No? They have the studies there. So for 1% increase in soil organic matter, the available water holding capacity in the soil increased by 3.7%. Kaya nga po mention ko yata gahapon na if you actually do mulching, yung pagtabon ng organic matter sa lupa natin, every 3 inches of mulch can actually keep around 1 inch of water. Nare-retain niya up to 30%. That means, instead na once a day ka mag-dilig, every 3 days pwede kasi may tubig pa siya natitira. Buhay na buhay pa rin yung tanim. In fact, one of our demo that I did for this, it lasted for 7 days. Nung tinusok namin yung soil after 7 days, walang ulan yon kasi talagang summer. But isang beses diniligan, after 7 days, nag-testing kami. And the soil was still damp. Talaga makikita mo na yung water is still there. That means may water retention, it's absorbed, there is retention, and hindi naubusan ng tubig yung ating soil. Hindi nagda-dry up. In turn, healthy yung tanim namin. Diba? Now, I've been mentioning the role of microorganisms in plant nutrition for some time now. The chemical elements that are essential for the plant growth is carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, phosphorus, at saka yung mga essential elements. Nakalista po yan. Marami-rami. So except for carbon and oxygen, all essential elements is acquired from the soil and hence majorly governed by the presence of organic matter. You can put synthetic in your plants for these essential nutrients, pero as again, if the soil is still degraded, yung soil structure niya pangit na, walang absorption, then it's gonna be useless because it's gonna be just washed out. So, the nutrient present in the organic matter cannot be consumed by plants as such since they exist as large organic molecules. So yung nutrients pala, hindi pa siya absorbable yung nasa plants talaga or nasa soil. So ano mangyayari? The soil organism will play a vital role in breaking down these larger molecules of organic matter into forms that can be directly used by plants through the process called mineralization. So the byproduct produces in the course of time also soil organic matter, though it is not decomposable as original plant and animal material. Ibig sabihin po nun, balik natin sa tao, no? Bata, baby, kailangan niya ng protina. Pero yung protina, I think sa mga naka-attend sa mga webinars ko, I'm usually using this concept, no? Yung protina ng baby na kailangan is yung absorbable sa baby. Now, a source of protein is legumes, mga munggo, mga beans. Meron din karne, pork chop, for example, or steak, no? Masarap yun. Kaso lang, bibigyan mo ba ang isang baby, mga 1-month-old na baby, bibigyan mo ba ng isang hiwa ng pork chop at papakainin mo ba siya ng isang hiwa na pork chop? I don't think so. Wala naman sigurong ganun na nanay, no? Yung bibigyan na lang ng pork chop yung bata at yan na yung pinaka-protina. And that's why we actually provide the absorbable nutrient. So, when I say absorbable nutrient niya, yung sa gatas. Kasi hindi pa siya absorbable. And it is the same with our minerals in the soil. Hindi pa siya pwede. And that's why we would need the microorganisms to process it internally. And yung excrete nila, yun na yung may exchange. So yung microorganisms get food from the starch that is excess starch na galing sa tanim, and yung tanim naman magbibigay na naman ng, or I mean to say, yung mga microorganism, ipaprocess nila yung minerals and nutrients para maging absorbable naman at the root level. Yun po yung pinaka-use talaga natin sa using the medium of water, kaya nakakaakyat sa tanim natin. Kaya nga po yung mga questions, usually nagche-check ako ng mga questions online, no? Yung mga groups, Facebook pages, mga forums. Tatanong sila, Sir, ang daming problema. Waterlog kasi, so nagbra-brown. May mga molds, may mga fungi. So bacterial wilt. Paano po ito siya? So, kung isipin natin, that could be because na-drain out. Pangit yung aeration ng lupa mo, kulang sa organic matter, and it's not a living soil. Kasi dapat living yung lupa natin eh. Without a living soil, you will not have the nutrient transfer from the plant and the soil. So, soil organisms play varied roles in plant nutrition and growth. So, maintenance of the soil structure and regulation of soil hydrological process, gas exchange, carbon secretion, and soil detoxification and nutrient cycling. Defense against pests, marami po siyang mga uses ng microbes. And why am I talking more about microbes? Again, kasi without the microbes, there's no decomposition that would happen. There's gonna be no composting. Wala po siyang heat na mangyayari sa ating compostable materials. And when there is no heat, there will be no change in the molecular structure. Same lang yung itsura niya. Ang problema lang, kung sumobra naman yung heat, and that's why we're talking always again about yung carbon to nitrogen ratio. So just to recap po, microorganisms in the soil contains 5 major groups. Nandiyan dyan yung bacteria, actinomycetes, fungi, algae, and protozoas. Karamihan nagsasabi, protozoa sir, di ba sakit yun? Actually, hindi po. That can still be beneficial. Now, what you have here as a picture is actually the nitrification process or cycle. Na from the plants, goes to the animals, from the animals to the soil, it goes back to the plants, to the air, nagra-run off siya. Marami po siyang process. And in each pictures of nitrification, may complex, may simple. Depende po yan sa level of understanding naman po. No? So sa atin, more on the basic lang po to. But there are really extensive cycles na makikita nyo online na pag tinignan mo, puro na mga chemical elements at saka compounds na in their compound form, no? So, sample niyan, eto. So, again, OM is organic matter, no? Para at least maano ng tao. So, the breakdown of dead plants and animal materials and release of inorganic nutrients. So, yun po yung decomposition of OM, isa sa mga definition. Now, meron naman tayong isang definition is decomposition is a biological breakdown and biochemical transformation of complex organic molecules of dead materials into simpler organic and inorganic molecules. That's from another agriculture book, no? From Juma in 1998. So, ang nangyayari is, ito po yung mga products. One of the sad products of composting is really methane. No? Compostable siya or combustible siya, and yan yung sinasabi ng mga tao na if you go organic without the proper control or knowledge, you're adding to the problem with the ozone layer kasi sinisira ng methane ang ozone layer. So that's why we actually try to provide more information. And when we provide more information on this through webinars, seminars, at saka pagtuturo natin sa mga estudyante, we are able to control and provide the proper information how we can eliminate or lessen the effects of composting to our problem, no? Yung pinaka-problem natin, yung greenhouse effect. So, yan yung claim ng mga fertilizer companies para siraan. But there's actually a resolution for that. So, ano ang laman talaga ng mga organic matters or the constituents of plants? When you decompose a plant material, again, I think I mentioned this yesterday, we have cellulose. It is the most abundant and 15 to 60% of the dry weight ng ating tanim. We have the hemicellulose, 10 to 30%, lignin fibers at 5 to 30, And we also have water-soluble fraction included, like simple sugars, amino acid, aliphatic acids. Yun po yung mga nutrients, kumbaga pa. Along with that, we have the ethers and alcohols, which is included in our plants, such as fats, waxes, oils, resins, nakukuha yan, and as well as the colors. Sensya na po ah. Okay, and as well as proteins, no? So, as a sample, we have this from one of our resource. Specifically, yung tanim na to is yung Selegeniala. So, meron siyang xylem, the tissue that conducts water from roots to the leaves. Meron siyang, sa cell niya po, with the rigid woody wall, there's no need for messy of the cells. So, in the rose form siya, parang pipe po kasi siya, no? So makikita nyo na nandiyan dyan yung lignin fibers at saka yung cellulose. And this is on the biochemistry na ng ating tanim. Anong mga inclusions. Now, why am I discussing this? Because not all plants, katulad ng rice hull kahapon, no? I think I discussed it pauna, na yung rice hull, it's not 100% organic. In fact, 80% lang siya ang organic matter niya, 20% is inorganic. And kaya nga pag nagka-carbonize tayo ng rice hull, pag nag-uuling tayo, meron po siyang sludge or sludge ang tawag namin doon, but there's something like a glassy tar na natitira sa ating mga funnels, no? Sa ating mga simburyo kung tawagin pa sa iba. Yung pinaka chimney ng ating carbonizer. That is actually due to the residue. And this, by law, allowed po tayo to combust or through pyrolysis o pag-iinit, pag-uuling ng ating mga rice hull. Allowed po siya sa Clean Air Act. Pero kung farm waste na po, hindi na po siya pwede. Katulad ng chicken manure. I think we have a lot of questions about that yesterday. No, chicken manure, it's not allowed po to burn it by law. But sino nagpupulis? Yun din ang problema. So, yun na lang po yung ano natin dyan. So, why do we care about decomposition? Why are we talking about this? Why are you paying for me to talk to you about composting and decomposition? Because it's important in the releasing of nutrients tied up in the dead organic matter. Again, if it naagnas lang siya without the microbes, there's no release of nutrients, hindi ma-absorb. And as a natural farmer practitioner, we actually believe in a specific cycle in which we provide the right nutrients at the right time. Hindi lang the right nutrients, but the right absorbable nutrients. So, who are the decomposers? We have the soil fauna. Ano to sila? Mga living organisms. So we have the earthworms, mga arthropods, mga insects, no? And mga fragmentation, comminution, so pang-increase ng surface area, and distribution of organic matter within the soil profile. Yan po yung gamit ng soil fauna. Sila po yung nag-spread, kumbaga pa, mga macro insects natin. Now, we have the soil microorganisms, the microorganisms naman. So, nandiyan yung 5 na sinabi ko. Bacteria, fungi, yung ating mga protozoas, sila na po yung nandiyan sa micro level naman sila. So, derive energy, carbon, and nutrients from dead organic matter in the process and releases CO2 through respiration. Sila na po yung nagpa-process. So katulad po nito, a tree grows in the soil. The leaf falls to the ground and some are eaten by the macro natin na mga insects. No? Some nutrients leach. So balik sa soil. Yung iba naman is tumutubo. Nagiging kabute or kinakain pa further ng mga mas smaller na insects up to the microorganism. Once it is rich again, ang soil, pag yung excreta and with the transfer or the change of nutrients from our bacteria to the plant, babalik po yan. And in which the nutrients will be provided to the plant. Walang nutrient deficiency. So, we'll go to another topic. Our second topic for today is actually yung mga animal manures and the beddings, no? So, on many farms kasi, pag sinabi mo, may baboy ako, nagde-deep litter, no? Yung babuyan na walang amoy. Sir, magandang i-compost yan kasi ah, yung tae, may nutrients yan. Tama, but we still have to consider yung carbon to nitrogen ratio to provide the proper fertilization of our plants and the proper release of the microelements. So, karamihan ng mga waste natin, may kasama yan, mga bedding kung tawagin, sa mga manukan, babuyan, even sa mga goat houses. They have the straw, the sawdust. This is the common bedding material. Meron naman non-traditional bedding materials, yung papel, katulad na may rabbit ka or may hamster, sawdust, yun, na may karton pa nga, no? Chopped cardboards. So, these are all still organic matter. But is it the right combination? So, the amount of manure, yan po, nakastock. Ang nangyari dito is this is a very old pig pen na may deep litter bedding, tinanggal, no? So the amount of manure composed on the livestock farm is often determined by cleaning schedules. Yung iba, gusto na nila palitan, then go for it. If you want to change it, you can change it. But for me, mas maganda na dagdagan na lang kasi mas madaling maghakot at magbuhos kesa sa maghukay. Para sa akin po yun. That's my opinion. So each type of manure has its own physical, chemical, and biological characteristics. For example, cattle and horses manures, when mixed with bedding, possess good qualities for composting. Kaso lang, does it provide the good nutrients? That's the issue. So, again, like for example, this picture, this was taken in Davao. Swine manure, which is very wet and usually not mixed with bedding materials, must be mixed with straw or similar raw materials. Yung sa manok naman, poultry manure also must be blended with carbonaceous materials rich in carbon. Those low in nitrogen preferred such as sawdust and rice straw. Kahit anong straw po actually, but ang pinaka-common sa Pilipinas kasi rice straw. So, as a natural farmer, we actually have beddings for our chickens. Our pigs are in deep litter settings. This eliminates the scent, no? And pag talagang totoo naman, pag tinanggal mo, once it's decomposed there, wala ka ng physical na gagawin. Kasi yung baboy na at manok na yung magmimix sa kanila, and it will seep down, and you will get an end result of very good composted materials from your deep litter bedding. So, most animal manure consists of feces. Tae po yun. Hindi lang tae, but urine. And common forms of animal manure includes farmyard manure. FYM po yun, no? Or farm slurry, yung mga liquid waste. Meron po mga tao na nakasemento yung babuyan nila or manukan or yung sa dairy farm nila. Nagiging slurry po yan kasi hinuhugasan nila yung flooring and medyo basa talaga. So that's liquid manure naman. And that can be still composted. Now, at the side po, we have the animal manures. No? This is in reference po, naka-ratioed out na to with at least around 10 references. Again, nag-ikakaiba po sila ng carbon to nitrogen ratio per book or per reference natin dahil when they do analysis, paiba-iba naman. So here is actually a sample of information that we were able to get the average of from 10 different resources. Most of them in the US. Isa lang kasi nagpa-process ng ganito sa Pilipinas eh. So, for example, natin yung chicken. Kung manure only, that's 6 po. 6 to 7. Pero kung chicken litter, yung meron na pong bedding, it can go up to around 16. Cow manure, nakalista po yan sila. Yung sa cow manure naman, it's the same thing. So the slides will be available naman po. This is so that you can do the computation that I taught you yesterday. And the step-by-step process to compute it is actually in our slides, which I will be sharing by tomorrow siguro para kumpleto na po ang ating module pag share natin. No? As of now, wala pa pong kopya si Ma'am Van sa mga nakikita niyo. Bibigay po natin yan as early as tomorrow morning so that by the third day, before tayo matapos, may kopya na po kayo. And here, I also included the other common materials. So we have the browns, cover crops, household waste, and crop compost. Iba-iba po yan sila. And as I mentioned, usually kasi ang nagpa-process or nagkumukuha ng mga study or bioassays for this is yung mga nasa US. And that's why some of the materials wala naman dito sa Pilipinas. But still, it is helpful. Like for example, sa common browns, we have the newspaper, sawdust, yung mga hardwood, softwood, straw, nandiyan na po siya. So this can be used or utilized in the computation po natin to achieve the 30:1 carbon to nitrogen ratio. So when you say, for example, cardboard na shredded, 350 ang carbon to nitrogen, that means 350:1 siya. 350 yung carbon niya, 1 lang yung nitrogen. Yan po yung ibig sabihin niyan. Yes, may nagsusulat. Exactly po. So, another study. This represents po. Okay, buti lang nag-erase siya, no? We have the dairy, beef, swine, poultry, tsaka turkeys. Nakalagay po dyan kung may yes ba or no ang bedding or litter. So pag sinabi nating litter or bedding, may covering po siya. Hindi lang po na as is where is na mga waste. So, nandiyan dyan yung dry matter, yung total nitrogen, total ammonium, potassium, and phosphorus available po dyan. So, same thing with the swine, beef, and dairy. If it's in a lagoon, ito po, slurry na po, liquid, no? Yung mga may halong tubig at saka ihi na po. Yan po yung sa second table. Of course, the chart shown above, as well as all the other charts natin, is approximate nutrient compositions of various types of animal manure and compost. Now, all values are on the fresh weight basis, mga kakakuha po lang po. Hindi pa po yan decomposed. Nag-iiba po kasi yung formulation once it's decomposed. No? So, brown and green matter, they do matter. Di ba? Yung composition natin. Kasi yung brown po is usually, that is how mga practitioners of vermiculture, yan sinasabi nila, dapat 30-70 ang ratio or 40-60, 50-50, depende yan. They're actually referring to the brown and green matters. Now, which animal waste is safe to use? Yan, may spin wheel po tayo dyan, ha? We have the horses, cows, chicken, rabbit, goat, sheep. Pigs, maybe. Wow, may maybe si pig. Bakit? It really depends kasi the more commercial practice that you put into your animals, the more na may mga posibleng antibiotics that can be taken out by the process of decomposition eventually, pero matagal. Pero yung mga baboy kasi natin, para mawala yung sakit, katulad ngayon, may ASF, no? And there's even a second or a different breed running around or another strain kung tawagin. Maraming tao, maraming mga farmers Nag-i-inject sila ng antibiotics talaga. In fact, may nag-reach out sa akin. I was able to answer them, no? Na, Sir, yung area po kasi namin sa ganitong lugar, it's owned by a certain company. Dinonate lang. And ayaw nila kami mag, ng baboy, for example. So, is there alternatives daw para magawa yung farm? So, there are always alternatives. And these are anything in green is okay. Yung sa pig po, depende po talaga sa cultural practice ng farmer. No? If they inject a lot, then I would not suggest. Even for chickens, it's still a maybe for me. But with the process that I showed you, and on the molecular level, yung toxins, if properly decomposed po yung ating organic matter, it's not gonna be an issue. And kaya nga po, punta tayo sa human waste and sewage. No? Decomposed thing, that's human waste. Ang daming tao na ayaw na itong pag-usapan. Isipin natin, in the Philippines, it's taboo. When you say taboo, parang ang sama kung pag-uusapan natin, tae. No? Pero halos lahat ng usapan, pag nagiinuman daw mga lalaki, aabot at aabot talaga sa tae. But anyway, let's talk about human waste as part of the composting. Why is it part? Na-mention ko kanina yung sa waste recovery. It's actually one of the big problems all over. And this is being addressed by the UN. The United Nations actually has an 18-point plan for 2030. You can research that out. And one of them is yung availability ng pag-dispose, proper disposal ng human waste. And one of this, actually this specific slide, no, is from the Center of Excellence in Eco-Sanitation, University of Agriculture Sciences. And it is sponsored by UNICEF. Wow. Pangbata yung UNICEF. Pero bakit kasali itong nutrients at composting sa kanila? So let's talk more about it. Human waste can be added as an input to the composting process since human excreta is a nitrogen-rich organic material. Yung tae po natin, mataas ang nitrogen. It can be either composted directly as in composting toilets. We'll discuss that today and tomorrow later on. No? And indirectly as sewage waste or yung sludge. So after it has undergone treatment in a sewage treatment facilities kasi, which is wala tayo dito, no? Except kung meron tayong yung sa Poso Negro natin, pinapasipsip. But I'm not sure if we really have the sewage facility here sa Pilipinas na malaki, no? There are actually processing plants in other areas. And feces contains a wide range of microorganisms, including bacteria, viruses, and parasitic worms. And it is used in a home of composting and can pose significant health risk. So medyo delikado din pala to. Kasi kung hindi properly done, ang mangyayari po dyan is yung ating nutrients or kahit na may nutrients siya, mataas yung nitrogen niya, kung may virus naman yung tao, may parasitic worms, no? May mga bulate pala siya. Dadami lang yan. Initially, katulad ng sa kanding nga, we practice yung tinatawag na rotational grazing. Ano yung rotational grazing? Yung pag-transfer po ng kanding natin from one place to another, hindi sila parating isa lang yung kakainan nila. Especially pag nagpapa-graze tayo. Actually, hindi sila grazers Nagpapa-browse. Yan yung term, browsing. So, bakit? Kasi yung pupo ng ating mga kanding, yung tae ng kanding, once it drops to the soil, may mga eggshells pa yan ng mga worms, mga cecal worms and other kinds of worms. And it usually takes 3 days for them to crack or to open up, and nagiging bagong parasite sila. So, that's why we usually suggest that after 5 days, saka mo ibalik sa pinagpupuan niya. Pwede na yun kainin kasi wala na namamatay na through the sanitation na nangyayari pag nainitan po yung ating ground, no? Or na focus siya underneath the sunlight. Now, pinag-usapan natin pupo lang, but urine can actually be put into compost piles and directly used as fertilizer. Malinis po yung ihi kasi galing yan sa katawan. Dumi siya, yes, ng ating katawan, but it's still quite clean. Di ba? So urine to compost can increase temperatures and therefore increase its ability to destroy pathogens and unwanted seeds. Unlike feces, unlike sa tae po, no? Urine does not attract disease-spreading flies such as house flies at saka brown flies. And it does not contain mostly hardy na mga pathogens, yung mga matitigas na sakit at saka parasitic worms. So, mas maganda pala yung urine. Kaya pala si Lola, dati, pinapaihi kami sa balde. Sinahaluan ng tubig, tapos ina-announce niya sa orchids niya, no? Ganun yun. Bakit? Because if properly diluted yung urine, it can be a fertilizer, direct fertilizer. Still clean. Kaso lang, kung may sakit yung tao na pinagmulan, dun tayo makakaproblema. So, yes. So, just to clarify, if CN is 350, so we need more nitrogen-containing waste to obtain 30:1 CN. That's correct, Ma'am Benita. I'll go back sandali sa ating computation ulit, how it's done. Para at least kung hindi talaga naintindihan, and which are gonna be in the slides, but I really want to make sure that we are in the same page always when I'm discussing. Kaya nga nung may chat, tinignan ko muna because it might be something important for everyone to really understand. So thank you po sa question. I'll go back to day 1 lang po slowly para makita natin kung ano yung pinagsasabi itong taong to, no? So may computation. Ano yung computation na yan? Hindi ko yan naintindihan. Yan po. So, how to calculate? For example po natin, yung grass clippings, if it is just 15, ang carbon to nitrogen ratio niya. Using the table po itong example natin, no? So for example, yung grass clipping mo is 15, yung chicken manure is 15. Again, it's 12 to 15. It's a variable. Depende po. This is considering na yung chicken manure ko neto was using actually beddings. May bedding to. So, ang nasa listahan natin kanina is 16, but I'm using 15 as a variable. So, that's still allowable. And we have dry leaves at 70. So, presuming na etong values na to ang ginagamit ko ngayon, these are the carbon to nitrogen ratio that I have for a table that I was able to attain. If I get 2 parts ng grass clipping, so 2 times 15, which comes from the table, magiging 30 na po siya. Now, 1 part of chicken manure, so isang part lang po, by volume or by weight, it's up to you po. But usually by volume to. And we multiply it again by the chicken manure, na carbon to nitrogen ratio here on top. We get another 15. Then yung 1 part ng dry leaf. Okay? So 1 part ng dry leaf at 70 carbon to nitrogen ratio, we will come up with a total of 70. So makikita niyo po dito sa gilid, in-add po natin to sila lahat kasi na-multiply na natin and we get 115. For this area, we also add the number of parts. And I think I answered that by volume ba or by weight. So 4 parts and 115 carbon to nitrogen ratio. So how we do the computation here is simple. We actually just go ahead and divide it. So we get a carbon to nitrogen ratio of 28:75. And actually, I'm going to be sharing to you guys a website that automatic na. Ilista nyo lang kung ilang peraso and you can do the calculations there. It's an automatic calculator later on, no? You'll be able to, at least check. It's not as accurate as having the soil analysis, but at least when you're composting, you would have an idea what you're putting in and at around where you are with the carbon to nitrogen ratio, so that you'll be sure that the nutrient level is still provided to the plants. Okay, yan. Marami tayong tables. So you can choose here po what you want to use. Now, correction po, yung carbon to nitrogen ratio is to determine if it is fertilizer. But all of these are all organic matter. So, clarification po yan ha. Lahat po to sila nakalista dito. Ang dami. These are all organic matter. Sa soil analysis kasi, tinitignan yan. Pag nagpapa-analyze ka ng fertilizer, tinitignan kung gaano kadami yung organic matter. So it does not matter if ang organic matter mo is 80% or 90% organic matter. Kung wala naman siyang tamang nutrient level. Okay? That's why I'm trying to explain to you the process itself. Now, dito sa picture natin, this is a value chain of sanitation. So, nandiyan dyan si tao, nagpupo, may containment or poso negro, pupunin ni, ano yung poso, mariposa, hindi mariposa, nakalimutan ko tuloy pangalan, it's in the tip of my tongue. Yung kumukuha ng mga pupo, then it usually goes to a processing plant or a treatment center. Here in the Philippines, I'm not that familiar if we have a big facility, but it is actually a practice in other countries now. And the waste goes back to the farmlands and we will actually be able to use it. So I think may nagtulong sa akin, nakalimutan. Malabanan, hindi mariposa. Yun, malabanan pala. Sa Poso Negro, tama po yun. Okay. So, pag-usapan natin to kasi it's still with the humans, no? A composting toilet collects human excreta. So, para lang po itong balde, no? And naglalagyan natin ng sawdust or ng ating mga rice hull para tumigas siya. Bawal po halo yung ihi dito. So, waterless po siya. So, maraming designs yan. You can even buy it sa Lazada, yung mga high-tech designs. Similar type siya ng porta potties po. Yung mga nakikita natin pag may concert or yung sa MMDA, no? Na mga CR. So, some composting toilets do not require water or electricity. Others may. Meron pong mga high-tech masyado na may timer pa, no? Kung kailan mo pwedeng tanggalan or may digital skill pa. So, if they do not use water for flushing, they will fall into the dry toilets. So some composting toilets design use urine diversion. Meron po siyang space na yung urine nakokolekta sa ibang parts, yung feces naman nakokolekta sa ibang parts. So katulad po nito, this is yung picture ng tao, no? May segregation siya. When you say segregation, the poop goes down, the urine is here. Nakokolekta naman. Okay? So may segregation. Again, this specific poster is from UNICEF, no? Nakakatawa pang So, anyway, when properly done, when properly managed, they do not smell. Maraming tao iisip kagad na mabaho. Hindi po. The only time na bumabaho po kasi ang isang bagay, like human excreta or yung mga tae ng hayop natin, is kung basa sila because it would attract the pathogens or mga bad microorganisms and bacteria. And since dry po siya, nakocoat po siya, medyo wala po siyang baho. And that is the same concept why some people that use deep litter bedding, yung nagbe-bedding po sila sa mga babuyan nila, is sinasabi, walang amoy to. Actually, may amoy pa rin. But it's the smell of the decomposing farm waste. Hindi siya yung amoy na tae na, or mabaho na utot. Hindi methane ang dating niya. So the amount of pathogen destruction depends on the temperature. Kung naalala nyo, meron tayong mesophilic and thermophilic conditions, no? Yung sa mga bacterias na sinasabi ko. So, isang factor din dito is gaano nakatagal. Now, gaano ba kaaga neto, ginamit neto? Or since when pa to siya ginagamit? Actually, the earliest that I know of na ginagamit neto is sa Greece, sa Attica phase. You can check it out. During that time, they had problems in the waste management. And during the Dark Ages in Europe, during the famine, plague, nangyari po yan. Yung mga tao doon na umiihi at nagpupupo sa balcony ng bahay nila, pumupunta sa ground. And if you are fond in watching mga movies, you can actually see that sa specific movie na I can think of is yung Les Miserables, no? During the French Revolution. It's a musical. So makikita mo na yung sa daan, tumatapak sila, may tae. Or kung mahilig ka sa Games of Thrones, yun, sa Westeros, no? May lugar doon na yung tae, tinatapon na sa labas ng bahay. Mabaho siya. So, nangyari is, it was already collected then. If you attended my aquaponics and hydroponics na advanced class, we talk about chimpanas, no? From the Aztecs. Isa po yan sa mga nilalagay nila with the soil in the middle of the water para gumawa ng floating na mga small islands. Yung manure, kinokolekta din nila. And in China, as well as in Japan, after World War II, it became a practice kasi wala silang supply ng mga chemicals. They were banned. May embargo sila. Even Brazil, they had that. Ang nangyari is they actually used manures. Until now, in Japan, Korea, they're still using manures. One specific country that is known to use that is North Korea as of now. Wala silang makunan ng chemicals, raw materials outside the country. So, they use, ang pinaka-organic nga daw na lugar is Korea kasi wala naman daw silang chemicals na abono. Now, even in the UK, no, mga British Isles, it's also being practiced sa mga gong farmers. And even in Hong Kong, they have this term, hindi ko nga mabasa, no? Doi Sen Xiang. Yun, yata yun. Ewan ko lang. Sana may makatulong sa akin dyan. Paano pagbasa niyan? Which literally means emptying the nocturnal fragrance. It's still being practiced until now. Yan po yung basin, no? O yung mga tinatawag natin na urinals, no? Yan. So, mayroon nga po palang pinost na si Ma'am Van, no? The Zoom meeting for tomorrow. Nagpalit po tayo ng ating login key. So, I think kung pwede natin masend yan sa lahat din, no? It's in the chat room right now. Okay. So, yung human excreta as well as ginagamit yan for fertilizers and composting and even to a point na mas mahal na daw siya. So, ito po, bigger type, it's the Clivus multrum type of, this is popular in the United States as an outhouse, Canada and Australia, as well as New Zealand and Sweden. Yung mga barn houses, meron po silang tinatawag na outhouse, dun po yan napraprocess, no? So, as the design for itself, builders, meron po siyang may specific po sila na ginawa. And ang only downside dito is sa Pilipinas, yun nga, parang ang sama pag-usapan pag ganyan na ginagamit mo. But in the Philippines, we have this. Okay, this is from the SSWM. So, low cost na urine diversion dehydration toilets, UDDTs, at coastal areas in Libertad Municipality, Philippines. Pilipinas to. Gawang Pinoy. Yung balde po or yung galunan, dyan po yung ihi. dito sa sako, nakalagay dyan, yung tae. I think makikita naman, no? So, simple lang siya. We have the sack. Diyan po yung ating soil, rice hull, as well as our sawdust. Pag tumae siya, bababa dito. Kung ihihi, meron naman to siyang tubo lang dyan. Iihi ka dyan at nadadivert po. May hose po yan na mapupunta dito sa galon. Simple, economical, and it works. The nice thing about this is you can collect your excreta. Kaso lang, you have to process it. It takes around 4 to 5 months daw, in theory, para mawala lahat ng sakit sa human waste. But I wish, if I were to try it, actually meron sa Cebu that is practicing it, ang suggestion nila talaga is 6 to 7 months na, or at least half a year from the time of collection. So half a year from the time of collection, saka mo pa pwedeng gamitin. You can't use it directly. So paano paggamit? Yan po. May tissue, pwede siya. May rice hull, may nakatatakpot dito. How to use the toilet? Make your deposit. Add a few handful of rice husk to cover your poo plus pee. Then make sure only excrements, toilet paper, and rice husk is in the toilet. Nakabaldi po to at tinatanggal. No? I think there's another movie that is also doing this, yung mga Gregorians, no? Sa mga, ano nila, sa mga, how do you call this? Mga CR nila in Europe na nakabalde. Sample ko na lang po, talaga yung sa Game of Thrones yung naglilinis po yung mataba ng CR. Yun. Yan po yung technology na to. And they're using it in their plants. So, what are the risks? That's the problem, no? Exposure to farm workers to untreated excreta constitutes to significant health risk due to the pathogenic content. Nakakasakit sila. There can be a large amount of enteric bacteria, viruses, protozoas, mga itlog ng ating mga bulate, nandiyan yan. So the risk also extends to the consumers. Kasi kung hindi properly processed, therefore excreta needs to be appropriately treated before the reuse. Again, it takes around 7, for me personally, I would still go for 6 to 7 months before I would use it. But according to studies with leading agencies, around 4 months okay na po siya. And this is in Haiti, cabbage. The picture is from Wikipedia. They've been practicing this for some time there. Again, sa Pilipinas kasi parang bawal, ang sama pakinggan, no? But in other countries, they actually use it. So, treatment of excreta for pathogen removal. The treatment of excreta and wastewater and pathogen removal can take place at the toilet itself. Pwede po siya malinis sa toilet itself. Urine collected from urine diverting dry toilet is often treated by simple storage at the household level. So pwede sa bahay. And at a semi-centralized level, yung mga tae, pwede natin i-compose. Now, sa malakihan, yun na po, si Malabanan. Sila na po bahala mag-process niyan. So, for example, this garden, they use it and they've been doing this. Ang ginagamit nila, donkey manure, cow manure, no? And pure fertile soil. And it's after maturing for another 2 to 4 months, ginagamit na nila. So, mixed po siya. So, ano po yung nutrients daw? Yung urine nutrients content is NPK at 3.5 grams per ml. SSP po siya. May NPK po siya. So that's 3.5, 1.7, and 1.6. Ito po yung urine. And how we actually process it is we try to dilute it around 20 times. Yung ihe times 20, lagyan mo ng tubig, pwede mo na kagad ibas siya. It is still clean. Sanitize po yan kung fresh na fresh. No? Mainit-init nga lang, pero fresh. It's still clean. Wala pa kasing microbes yan. And Unless may sakit yung tao, that's the only time that pinapalitan po talaga natin yan, no? Or dinidiscard. So, even in practice, this is a book from one of, this is my picture with the translator. I had a picture with Yang Cho, the creator of this technology naman. But this is just a snippet of the book, no? The Soil Association daw, the organization that first introduced organic certification system in 1967, and its current certifying over 80% of UK organic foods, has emphasized the value of human manure. Its 2010 report says that the peak phosphorus and the threat to our food security, yan, so that the human manure will play a vital role in food security for the future. According sa kanila nga po, ang price niyan, pagdating ng 2033, the price will soar after that. And it stresses the importance of bringing human manure back to farming. Ganyan siya kagrabe, no? So this is another technology that it includes so many things. So this is a picture of the person that is practicing it. Si Ray was able to meet him 3 times. He's a good friend of mine now. Now, nutrient management. Let's talk about the nutrient management. We'll continue with some of the other information na po, no? Before we go to the question and answer portion. Actually, the slides that I have continues na to all the way to the third part, but we'll talk about it first, no? Or for the third day. So we need to feed the soil. Again, we need to give back to the soil. My question. At Eco Farm in Antique, yes, I've been there. I experienced using a compost toilet that uses combination of rice salt and CRH. When the toilet was almost full, the generating heat, the older human manure content were evacuated to a pit and covered with tree barks. Yes po, I've been there. 6 months, that's correct. My question is, does this mean the human manure is safer for fruit trees and leafy greens other than small plants and edibles? It's not really safer per se, but it is an alternative po. That's what I can say, Ma'am Abelia, no? Ma'am Marilyn. It is an alternative rather than having it seep into the soil na basta-basta lang sa Poso Negro. Actually, may leakage yan eh. So why not use the natural biological waste that we have and repurpose it. Di ba? Uso na ngayon yung mga repurpose, recycle. So, Ma'am Grace, how about those that are taking supplements? Is it still safe to use in the plants? Again po, for those that are taking supplements, if it is a supplement, it usually deals with the nutrients na kulang ng katawan natin. So it does not really, it's not really a problem. But if you talk about medication, then that's another story. And that's why during the process of pyrolysis, yung pag-init niya po, kaya importante yung microbes natin. Without the microbes, there's gonna be no pyrolysis o yung pag-init ng ating compost. Pag wala po siyang init, it will not kill the pathogens at saka mga toxic. And I'm talking about the molecular level na po. Kasi yung toxins nawawala po siya, and there are several, not only several, a lot of studies that can prove that. No? One specific person is that is practicing it is yun, si Payne. Jean Pan, hindi Payne, Pan. He did a study on that, and it proves that once you compost it properly, well, nawawala po yung issues or problems. Okay? So, balik po tayo. Some of the simple techniques that are very effective are mulching, green manures, cover crops, and composting. Ito po sa nutrient management. So, kailangan pa rin natin pag-usapan yung SOM or soil organic matter. Because again, paulit-ulit to eh. It acts as a storehouse for nutrients. It improves the soil structure, enhances the soil exchange capacity, increase the infiltration of water, and prevent hard pan formation. Yung hard pan formation po is yung water logging. No? It acts as a buffer during rapid changes in soil alkalinity, acidity, and salinity. So, kumbaga pa, siya yung nag-ano ng pH level natin, nagko-control. So, practices is like, for example, green manuring po tayo. It is a practice of plowing or turning into the soil undecomposed green plants materials for a purpose in improving physical structure. So, yung mga scraps po, yung mga food waste, diretso na sa lupa, pabayaan na lang doon, ini-spread. That's green manuring. It increases the availability of plant nutrients that contributes to the yield of the crops. Kaso lang, pag ito yung practice mo, karamihan ng tao dyan, question, baka if you're in a urban setting, papabarangay ka na dyan at nagkakalat ka, nagtatapon ka sa bakuran mo, no? Pero sa rural setting, this is somewhat like a practice. Okay. So green manure crops are quick-growing legumes. So mga leguminous plants, mga beans, no? Mga munggo, balatong, mga leguminous plants. You can use ipil-ipil, kakawate. High in nitrogen po yan. Kaya sinasali to sa pauna na arado. And once it decomposes in the soil, then you have the nutrients there. Provided that you, of course, have the microbes in your soil. Eh kung tigang na yung lupa mo, useless din. No? At bumabaho pa yung area. So, biofertilizers. We'll talk about more of this tomorrow, no? Their preparation containing efficient strains. So, meron po tayong mga microbes as well as mga natural na nangyayari. Meron kasi tayong tinatawag na rhizobium. Okay, katulad sa mga familiar sa nagtatanim ng mga munggo, no? May parang seeds po yung roots niya. Yan po siya is, nangyari po yan sa mga leguminous plants. Ang tawag dito is nitrogen fixers. That's actually nitrogen. And without the proper decomposition or microorganisms, hindi po siya marirelease sa tanim. Kaya napapayal lang siya yung nitrogen. So sayang din yung abono mo kung hindi naman ma-utilize ng tanim. Okay? Azospirillum is a nitrogen-fixing bacteria found in rhizospheres or various grasses species. That's why ang inaano natin is still, mas better pa rin na yung grasses hindi natin sinusunog at tinatapon. I-compost nyo. Bakit? This has well-established na studies on the effect of the growth sa substance by the bacteria, which is found in the grasses. Let's differentiate yung grasses at saka weeds, no? Yung weeds kasi po, ang definition niyan is any plant that is outside of its place. That's a simple, So, kunwari, may buko ka, or nyug, buko tuloy, nyug, tapos nagtanim ka sa ilalim ng saging. Sino yung weed dyan? Is it the buko or yung banana, yung saging? So some people would consider yung banana is a weed. If we look at the definition, kasi hindi mo magagamit yung banana dyan sa ilalim ng buko or baka cohabitation, no? Intercropping. Pero kung magkatabi sila, the buko would be the banana would be the weed. So even if magagamit mo siya na tanim, kung out of its place naman siya, then it's considered a weed. Yung grasses naman po is natural yan eh. Tinutulungan nga niya yung soil, the structure, yung aggregation na pinagdidiscuss ko kanina, no? The more that it can actually infiltrate the soil, and once it is decomposed, or pag pinatay natin yan, the roots will actually help in the or help in providing more organic matter in your soil. Provided nga lang, yun yung sinabi ko, provided of course that you have the microorganisms there. Like the azotobacter. It's a popular inoculant naman po. This is for non-leguminous crops and promotes seed germination, is very vital. It's still in your organic matter. Phosphate or phosphobacteria, meron din po yan. It's in the seed or the soil, increases the availability of phosphorus. So if you are able to identify the correct carbon to nitrogen ratio and further study it, kung ano yung mga available na NPK values niya, then you will be able to come up with a compost that is absorbable. Kaso lang, again, if you put it in the soil, it does not mean na absorb kagad yan without the bacteria. We have BGA, blue-green algae. This is a common practice. And basically, yun. Balik tayo sa composting. Okay? So, we have several process. Pauna lang po to. We have the heap method, aerobic composting. Meron po din tayong anaerobic composting and vermicomposting. So, sources and materials for used for composting, the selection of site, marami po to sila. So, just to give you a base po, ito po yung heap composting, no? We have the sticks as our basal layer. And the first layer is yung waste materials. Then we use the cow dung or slurry, yung poo or tae po as our nitrogen source. Tapos i-layer yan pataas po, no? Katulad ng denowing natin na last time. And in order for you to come up with a good heap or a good compost pile, it needs to be at least 1 cubic meter. Hindi po, kung magpapile po kayo and you want to be able to get a good heap ng compost, it works at 1 cubic meter po. Okay? Then we have other ways of doing this. This is anaerobic, walang hangin. Aerobic pala po. No, this is anaerobic, sorry. It's actually covering it with soil para pag biak natin ng clay natin, there's no air and this will compose almost anything. In fact, in the US, mga dairy farms, if they need, pag may down na animal or mga napatay, they cannot just go ahead and dispose it as karne. Dito sa yung tinatawag ng mga double dead, bawal po yun. So they actually compost it because incineration is bawal pag ganyan. So there is composting of carcasses. You can check it out. It takes around 7 up to 1 year, 7 months up to 1 year, yung buong baka na binaon nila sa compost na agnas na po, nawala na po lahat. Actually, in the 6 months, kung gusto mo tanggalin yung mga bungo, pwedeng-pwede pag-turn natin. No? But usually, it takes around 6 months to 1 year for the whole thing to decompose. Kaya nga po yung sinabi ko, I have tried it with pigs, chicken, goat, at saka yung rabbit, no? Yung pag namatay. But yung ano ko lately is kahit na yung cattle daw, kayang-kaya. So I have yet to practice that, but soon. Now, vermicomposting naman is the method of converting waste into compost by use of earthworms. We'll talk about this more. Just a basic information lang po on the basic technologies muna. No? So, meron po tayong composting area. We compost it first or pre-compost. Actually, the worms natin will not eat will not really directly eat yung mga fresh pa. So, kailangan ma-pre-decompose natin. Once it's pre-decomposed, that's the time that you feed it and you add the worms. And you need to keep and maintain the moisture level, the pH, kasi yung specific na worms na ginagamit dito sa vermiculture is actually medyo madali magtampo, no? Yung African nightcrawler. We'll talk about that tomorrow with the other technologies as well as the designs, no? On the housing, the boxes, and everything else. So these are some of my students when we teach, no? Ito po dito ang supervisor ko, no. Makikita niyo diyan. Uh, ang pinaka-supervisor ko during some of my classes sa field. Yan po, carbonizer. Ito po yung tsura ng carbonizer. Paano paggawa ng rice. Uh, Carbonized rice hull. Nilagyan namin ng muka. Yan po siya. Nagbabantay ng mga estudyante. Kasi sometimes sobrang init na at sa dami ng estudyante na tinuturuan natin. Sometimes I teach around 200 kids at the same time on this. Young youths on composting as well as pag-prepare ng mga substrates natin. So this is in a farm school that we have. This is a sample ng bedding. This is where we have our vermiculture done. So vermi beds natin. Now, in the link by tomorrow, I'll be giving you this. This is the compost calculator. Click nyo lang po yan. Pag na-open nyo na, download nyo yung natin slide. You just click it as well as yung mga NPK values. As again, I mentioned, we already gave you the calculator for the carbon to nitrogen ratio. Now, to check on the NPK value, you can use this. It does not have all. Again, but it's a valid resource that you can at least get a rough estimate kung pinagagawa mo ba ay tama o hindi at if you're giving the nutrients. So that's the end po ng day 2. Initially we talked about so many things, no? Mostly about the kinds of materials that we can use. Humaba yung usapan sa manure. Bakit? Kasi it's really one of the best source of the nitrogen part ng ating composting. It's a vital discussion point ng ating composting. So, right now, I'll be attending to questions. As again, para mas madali po, i-question nyo na lang po, salinsinan na lang po tayo. At para ay makausap naman ako, nasasayang yung laway nyo dyan. No? Yun, may questions tayo. Is there difference between green manuring and mulching? Yes po. Because green manuring, Ma'am Marilyn, Ma'am Abelia, no, is actually you integrate it to the soil. Yun po yung sinasali po yan pag arado, yung green manuring. But yung mulching naman po is we cover it. We cover the soil with organic matter. So that's the difference po. Ma'am Chavez, sir, in urban household setting, discourage po ba ang pag-add ng food scraps, meat, dairy, rice, oily stuff sa bin kasi it will invite insects? Depends po sa ginagamit natin na grains, no? If you're using the bokashi grain, the problem with that is it uses EM. Effective microorganisms po yan or EMAS kung tawagin. It's mixed with rice bran and yun po yung pinagtatabo natin sa ating mga bins, no? For bokashi bins yata itong question ni ma'am. Now, for me kasi I use indigenous microorganisms as well as microbial solutions. So we actually can provide more more suitable bacteria to attack the proteins. Kasi yung protein na dyan yung nagpapabaho po talaga yung mga meat at saka oil stuff. So, ang nangyayari po dyan is simple lang po. We add more content kasi yung EM at saka EMAS, it has just specific 8 bacterias. Sa akin, mas diverse po kasi kung ano yung mga matitigas na sa lugar nyo, and I'm actually explaining that in my natural farming seminars, no? If sila po na mga bacteria is matagal na dyan sa lugar nyo, mas alam nila. They are able to adjust, acclimatize na kasi. Unlike the specific 8 bacteria that comes from Japan with EM, like Japan has 4 seasons. Yung sa kanta pa is winter, spring, summer, or fall, di ba? Sa atin, dry and wet. Kung hindi sanay, kahit na ikaw, pag pumunta ka bigla ng Alaska at sabihan kita na mag-swimming tayo, baka manigas ka po kasi hindi sanay. Ganun lang po yun. So, same with the bacteria. It needs to be acclimatized and it does kailangan lang po siguro na i-strengthen nyo ang microbial presence sa beans po ninyo. So, it's really not saying that it's discouraged, but it might be better that you strengthen it po more. Biogas digesters, Sir Carlito, that would actually be in a planned, meron po tayong pinaplano na about livestock no? Seminar. For digesters, it would still be another part pa po. Right now, hindi kasi siya masasali talaga. That's why we just discuss about the methane and ano. Pero the design itself ng biodigester, wala po. But with the document that I promised you na isasali ko, no, the pain ni John Payne, it would have you'll have somewhat of an idea for the digester po. Yes po, Ma'am Marga, you can use all greens po. Ang question niya po is, paano po kung wala kaming manure? Can it all be greens? Yes po, you just need to use the nitrogen-rich na mga plant-based katulad ng kakawate, yung Madrid de cacao, tawagin. Yung mga ipil-ipil, yung mga sampalok leaves, maganda po yan. Malunggay. So, pwede po yan sila. Jason Binayaw, yung question niya is, yung application po ba ng compost pwede as mulching na? Di natanggalin yung buhay na pang-weeds? It's an option nyo po. If you can produce that much compost, then yes. It would act the same way. Kasi it would cover the soil. And since during the pyrolysis stage, the thermophilic stage po natin na sinasabi, napatay na po yung seeds ng ating mga weeds. So if you cover your soil with it, then that can be mulch.
Pero good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. Yes
sir,
po, go
ahead.
Pwede
po mag-tanong, sir.
Pwede kayo.
Sir, humus, sir. Ano po yung sir? Difference ng humus, yung binibentang humus, sir, sa compost na yung tinuturo mo.
Humus, baka humic.
Humic acid ata, sir, yung
okay,
yung parang
so,
yung maitim po, sir, yung maitim.
Yung humic acid po, sir, it still comes from organic matter. It's actually as an addition. Yung acid na po kasi niyan is similar to amino acids. It would help, enzyme-based po yan at saka organic matter-based. That would help the promotion of the nutrient exchange. May mga enzymes po yan. So kung may bacteria ang lugar mo or may enzymes, yung enzymes na tutulong sa exchange between the root tips ng plants with the absorbable nutrients na galing sa bacteria. Siya din po yung magiging tulay ng pag-release ng plants ng excess na starch para kainin ng ating mga microbes na nagiging sugar through starch hydrolysis. So that's why it works. But if you compost, difference ng compost is pretty much the same thing. Pero it's not enzyme, it's not microbial based. It is the nutrient that is lacking. Kasi kahit na maglagay ka ng maraming humic acid sa lupa mo, kung wala naman ding bacteria at saka wala ding ma-absorb na pwede yung tanim, useless din po. So I hope that answers the question.
So po yung humic acid po, makakatulong lang po, sir, sa mga bacteria.
It helps a lot.
Yung humus, sir, yung humus na, may nagbebenta kasi sa amin, sir, lupa siya, ang itsura, lupa na maitim. Humus daw, yun ano?
Yung humus po, is yun na po yung na-compost na po natin.
Yun na po yung compost.
Naalala niyo po na sinabi ko meron tayong curing stage. After the curing stage, yung harvesting stage, yun na po yung humus.
Okay. So
Yung
kahit
pa na
ano po
talaga
yung
siya.
ano na yun, yung
Yan yung
organic matter
compost.
na gawa sa humus, kahit ano lang po, sir.
Yes. Kaso
Okay.
lang, yung humus na sinasabi natin, still depends kung soil amendment ba siya, pangdagdag lang
Or,
ng lupa, or
okay.
as
Fertilizer.
fertilizer.
Thank you po, sir.
You're welcome po. So, may mga questions pa, no? Habang kwentuhan to. Yung application po ba, yun, sagot ko na. Ano po yung CN ratio ng rabbit manure? Rabbit manure, according to the, ano po natin, resource na nakuha, no? Just to go back. It's around 3, if I'm not mistaken. It's going to be in the slide po, no? Let me just go ahead and re-check specifically sa rabbit. Okay, bat, cow, dung, llama, pig, rabbit, here, 12 po. 12 po yung carbon to nitrogen ratio ng rabbit. Still depending on the usual na feeds nyo po, no? But in general, it's around 12. So that can be a good nitrogen source. Okay, that's for Sir Joito, no? So si Alburn, sir, I already use green manure. Can I use it as a soil in my seed crops? Yung green manure po, are we talking, if you already use that, then yes, you can use it as long as it's already done with the thermophilic stage and you make na cured na siya and ready for using. Okay? What is the ideal distance of mulching to fruit trees? I think I already, mulching po, ideal distance is on the tree itself po natin siya minomulch, no? And as well as dun sa may mga, may mga, sa ating canopy po, which I drew yesterday. So, nahirapan kasi ako mag-drawing. Try natin ulit, ha. So, puno. Yan. Hindi tayo magaling masyado mag-drawing eh. Kung yan yung puno, kung ito yung leaf part niya, dyan po yung ating nutrient or yung compost nilalagay. But mulches should be here. Yan, to protect it. Kung kaya nyo po, yung buong canopy po, mas maganda po yan. Okay? So, is there ideal distance? Yun na po yung sagot. So, that's from Marga, no? Ano po pala yung Jadam? It's actually another type of technology, Ma'am Abelia. It's a Korean technology. It's similar to natural farming. It's the newest, it's ultra low cost, cheap. It's still organic po. And we're actually, a lot of people are doing that right now in the Philippines na po. Sir, needed po ba ang shredder para mas mabilis? Yes po. Material size matters. I think I discussed that yesterday na kung troso ang i-compost mo, yung buong puno, matatagalan ka. Pero pag chinap-chap yan, mas mabilis po siya. Now, of course,
Hello,
hindi
sir.
Go ahead, Sir Marlon.
Ay, sir, regarding po sa composting kasi, so maganda po yung topic. Sir, ang dito po ako sa prompt lagi. So, ang problem ko is, ito lang po yung available na na pwede kong gamitin. Yung kusot na galing sa mga hardware, and then yung sapal, pwede rin yung by combine with yung galing sa bakery din, yung mga natuno na yung mga tinap. So, pwede po ba siya
Galing
i-combine,
sa
sir?
bakery, pwede po.
And then yung mga other materials like mga kitchen wastes, mga leafy vegetable.
Kaya nga po,
So,
dito sa slide po napapakita ko ulit if you're online and you can see it. Nandiyan dyan po parang basic picture ng farm ng mga pwede natin kunin. Nandiyan dyan po yung tinapay. Nandiyan dyan yung eggshell.
okay. Hindi ko nakita sir kanina to. Sorry.
Yan. Kahit
Okay.
yung papel na nilalagyan ng mga ng pandesal, pwede nyo hingin yung mga napunit.
Sir, ayun sa copy, nakita ko na rin. Sige, so po, pwede silang combine lahat, sir, as
Yes
one,
po.
Okay.
Pero you consider na isa-isa neto may kanya-kanyang
Layer pa, or
carbon to nitrogen ratio.
carbon to nitrogen ratio. Okay, sige, sir. Thank you po.
That's why nga po na sa slides natin, I'm giving a free link to the resources. Again, no, sa pinaka last part ng day 2, there is a page there na pwede nyo pong pag nag-open na po kayo and you're connected online, i-click nyo lang, dadalhin kayo sa isang website that can check or mako-compute yung carbon to nitrogen ratio, as well as it will also, you can also compute for the NPK value niya by using the next site naman po. So, dalawang website po yan. Vital, para at least may idea po tayo, no? Kung ano siya. Okay. Wala. Ito po siya. There. Pasensya na po at mabilisan kasi. There. Dalawang website po yan. Okay. Another question from Ma'am Evangelina Iona. Sir, pwede niyo po bang kaming bigyan ng sample ng layer by layer diagram ng compost po? That will be tomorrow po. We'll give you the samples po. Gano'ng kadami by volume.
Sir.
Go ahead, Ma'am Kim.
Oo. Bakit hindi kasama ang cat and dog manure?
Ulit po, ma'am. Medyo choppy po.
Yung cat and dog manure, bakit
Okay.
hindi pwede?
The reason is they are pathogen carriers po.
Okay.
Usually, mga waste po ng food waste na unprocessed yung kinakain nila. And because of the type of diet that we have, ng ating mga aso, if they're using dog food, mas malala pa po yun. Or cat food. But kung tira-tira na pinagtirahan ng tao, may mga magic sarap yan, may mga preservatives. So, aside from dyan, unless kung talagang you can assure na malinis yung aso nyo, then you may use it. But any domesticated animal na aspects, we do not really use it kasi. But if you properly process it, maybe wait for about 7 months, treat it as human manure, then yes, you can do so. Wala pong problema
Thank you
yan.
very much.
No problem po, Ma'am April. Ma'am Kim or April. Dalawa pangalan. Sir, we have silt soil. Any suggestions we need to do to improve before planting? Yun. Maganda-ganda tong tanong ni Ma'am Grace, no? Silty daw yung soil niya. Paano natin i-improve? So, simple lang po. If you remember po yung ating triangle kanina, that is more of a guide on what you need to do or amend or dagdag para gumanda po yung soil natin, no? Just getting to that page. And by using that diagram po, you will know what you need to add. That's under aggregation, soil aggregation. So, let's just get to that slide. Medyo, yan. Oops. Tanong niya po is silty daw yung soil nila. So, we need to add loam or clay according to what you want. Yan po. Our main goal is to really come up with the sandy loam. So, dadagdag po kayo ng sand. If it's 50% sand, for example, ito, para makuha ninyo. Kung idadagdag ninyo is 60% na sand, na clay, and you provide here 80%, additional 80% ng ating dito po siya, sandy clay loam. You just follow po ito, yan. May mga triangles po yan. 60%, kung ilan po yung dadagdag natin to be able to get it. So, ganyan po kami nag-a-add ng amendment. I use this specific triangle as a guide. At what percentage do I add the clay or the sand? But if you add organic matter, usually you'd be able to achieve this area. Pero kung silty talaga, I would suggest that you add a little bit of sand to your organic matter para yung drainage and aeration niya po. Okay, I'll go to the next question. Nawala
Hello, sir.
na po. Yes, Mr. Carlito, go ahead.
Sir, may tanong ako regarding kapag magamit po tayo ng trichoderma, sir, yung fungus ba, di
Mm.
ba mas mabilis din yung decomposition ng ano, para sa
Actually, hindi
compost?
po decomposition. It's the same as the trichoderma po, which I will discuss tomorrow po. I have a slide for that. Yung trichoderma kasi po, it is an enzyme. It comes usually from our coconut husk, mga cocoa peat. Natural occurring po yung trichoderma dyan. And it is an enzyme, not really a bacteria. That is like humic acid. It helps, but it does not really necessarily mean that if you add more of it, it will make it faster. It may help in the accumulation of microbacteria para maka-exchange lang yung nutrients, makapadami sila to be able to create more heat. Kaya bumibilis po. It's just a factor.
Okay.
So, I hope clear po yung sagot ko doon.
Kasi may nabasa lang rin ako, sir, ba na parang biopesticide, good sir.
Yes, it is a biopesticide for pathogens po. Kasi yun nga po, because of the enzymes that is in trichoderma, dumadami po yung microbes. Pag dumami yung microbes, mas iinit ang ating compost. Pag uminit yung compost, napapatay po in a molecular way yung mga pathogens, yung mga sakit. That's what I have been trying to discuss, na importante yung init through the process of pyrolysis. Since nakakapadami pala siya o tumutulong siya para dumami ang ating microbio, then yes, it will really help kill the pathogens. It is a factor, but it is not the main factor. It is a contributing factor. So, yun po yung sagot ko doon, Sir Carlito.
Thank you, sir.
Welcome po. How about food waste? Mga tira-tira food, okay lang ba? Again po, there's a process of, it's still gonna be composted naman po yung food, no? Unlike sa, then yes, as long as you follow the table po natin, then yes, it's okay. That's food waste, is okay. Problem lang sa, talaga, sa aso at pusa na poop, tain nila is they might be carrying extra pathogens po na baka hindi ma-process through this. When we talk about manure kasi, it's really dried na process na. Pre-composted kumbaga pa, sun-dried. Kung direct mo isalo, hindi po yun nangyayari na maganda po. Unless na lang na matigas na yung tain ng animals nyo. Okay, sir, bago po yung lupa sa field, hindi na taniman, pwede po bang gamitan basal seeding tray or compost soil na nabili ko? Up to you po. If you actually have the soil itself already, then yes, you may do so. It really depends on what you will be using for this. If composted po siya, then yes. But I cannot assure you that it's a fertilizer grade. Oh, sarap ng kain ni Ma'am Bell, no? Okay. So, another question. How about how to compost banana trunk and leaves po? Any recommendations? Recommendations, it's still gonna be the same. Chop-chopin nyo po para mas mabilis. As again, material size matters in composting. Then you add a little bit more of straw or corn husk. Pwede po yan. Halo po dalawa. At saka straw. According to the volume, I would still need to run through the computations po for that. Okay, we have two questions po. Are there physical indications that the compost or composting process has gone bad? One physical indicator po is umitim, may molds pero maitim. That has gone bad. That means na overpower ng bad microbacteria ang good microbacteria, or it did not reach the specific thermophilic stage, yung above 65 degrees po na temperature. Okay? Number two, through laboratory assays lang po ba natin malalaman if mga commercial compost being sold is indeed nutrient rich. Yes po, unfortunately, it's something like a trust issue na lang po. If you trust your source, then if they claim it is, then it is. Who am I to say na hindi, no? They might have the documentation for it. But for me, it's better that you just create it your own. That's why we're teaching it. That's why you're attending this webinar. So that's for my Lean Chavez. We have another questions for Sir Ernest. Okay, when making compost, by volume po tayo or by weight? By volume po, sir. I think I answered that yesterday, no? Okay, sir, how do I apply rabbit manure as fertilizer? Is it safe for fresh? Again, all manures we don't use as fresh. No? Okay, I'm checking kung may na-skip ako na questions, no? Step by step po sana. Okay, Ma'am Evangelina, as I said, I will be teaching you the step by step tomorrow po, no? Abo or ashes. As a replacement, yes, Sir Ernest, this will be the housing for our microbes after. Usually, during sa curing ko na po dinadagdag yung abo. But not that much. It's just a minuscule lang po para may matirahan po yung microbes natin. And usually, even a tablespoon of charcoal or ashes is actually enough to accommodate microbes good for 1 hectare. Ganun po siya kaano. Kasi maraming holes po yan. So yung surface area niya maganda. Natataguan ng microbes natin. If properly spread po, then it will help the soil. May matataguan yung microbes natin during the rainy or the hot season and they will be able to propagate. Para mong ginawan sila ng condominium kasi pag ginamit yan. No? But if excessive naman po, it will make your soil very bad. Magiging ano na po yung abo. Magiging amendment pa kasi siya. Okay. So other than that, I think up to date tayo sa question. Sir, stuff na meron oil like chicharon na naransid, pwede po ba isali sa compost? Yes po. You can do that. Or banana chips na expired. Yes. But I would suggest that you soak them first in water. No? Then afterwards, you dry it again. This is just to take out the excess na coating. Kasi katulad ng banana chips, if it's coated with sugar, then it would have it will help in the composting process because the sugar will be released as feeds for the microorganism. Okay. So, Marlene Chavez again. The concern of bacterial viruses, parasitic worms, and animal manure is addressed through drying by solarization. In goats po, it is addressed. But when you dry it, further decomposition is needed. So this is a preparation stage lang po, Ma'am Mylene, no? Ang sinasabi po natin is initial, we do not use fresh manure. We have to have it pre-processed first before we can go ahead and use it in our compost pile. Yan po yung ano. But it will help in the initial taking out of the pathogens. That's correct. Sir, pwede po bang i-compose yung mga non-biodegradable waste? If it's non-biodegradable po, then there's another process po. That's why we actually discuss what an organic matter is. Kasi it will not be compostable in such a way. But there are studies that you can convert it. I'm not sure if familiar kayo sa mga superworms. This is the worms na pinapakain sa mga arwana, yung mga nasa pet shop. They actually eat. There was a study in UPLB na pinakain sa kanila is yung lalagyan mismo nila, styrofoam. Kinain nila, pero nung lumabas na, naging organic matter nung nag-analyze sila. So, that could be something that is researchable, but I'm not equipped to really talk about that because there's no enough evidence pa po. So, I would rather not, There might be some bacteria that can help. In fact, sa mga oil spills, I think I mentioned that bacteria is being used to take out oils. Kasi it really cleanses the system. So, repaste. Ayun. Marina Belia. Baka na-miss ko yung sagot. Sa permaculture, may na-mention na technique na chop and drop for handling weeds. Hindi ipupul ang weeds. Instead, i-chop and then, yes po, that's mulching. Magiging mulch. Kung gayon, yung magugo ulit na weeds, since hindi nila pinull out. Hindi po, kasi matatabunan po eh. In permaculture, which is another type of organic agriculture, the practice is we do not weed out the soil or the weeds. Hindi natin tinatanggal, no? Pinapabayaan natin, i-chop natin, and we actually lay them down. Pag na-chop na natin, i-drop natin para magiging mulch siya. Pag natabunan kasi, the purpose of mulching is actually to control the weeds para hindi na ma-disturb. Kasi every time that you pull out the weeds, yung mga seeds niya, na-expose na naman sa sun, and it takes a microsecond, 2/3, 1/3 of a second na mainitan na sila at ma-expose sa tubig and atmosphere, yung mga dormant seeds ng mga weeds natin, lalabas at lalabas po yan. And that's why we mulch. We cover it instead. Kasi pag na-cover siya, you're depriving it with the sunlight, you're depriving it with nutrients, and hence it will just die out. So, Sir Nicolo, Manuel, sir, I have read kasi madami sources sa internet about rabbit manure being used fresh as fertilizer. Kasi considered daw as cold manure daw. Yes, it can be, but for proper practice na lang din po. Because we're talking about composting. You can use it as a fresh. There's nothing against that. There's studies. But analysis-wise, once it is pre-composted and mas nakakalabas po yung nutrients. Again, there is such a thing as absorbable nutrient. It is still a fertilizer, don't get me wrong. But the amount of nutrients that it is giving out, hindi siya para siyang, kumbaga parang gamot po. Like Alaxan. I'm not promoting, wala po akong sweldo dyan, pero parang Alaxan, may FR, fast relief. Mabilis siyang umepekto, pero mabilis din mawala yung epekto. Ganun po yun. Now, meron naman tayong ordinary lang na Alaxan, pero slow release naman siya. So, it takes longer for it to effect, pero mas matagal yung effect niya. And that's the purpose of us discussing how to compost properly para slow and effective. And eventually, once you keep on using it, it would do away with all the issues. You don't have to even add more. Kaya nga po, may tanong kahapon, no? Gano'ng kadami sa isang hektarya? Pauna, we start with 18 to 20, even 16 to 20. Then, second cropping, pababa na pababa yan until such a time that the microbes is there, the nutrients is there, and you're able to provide a sustainable environment, a biodiverse environment that can provide the organic matter, enough organic matter to provide the nutrients for our microbes, our enzymes, and in correlation with our plant, they will all be flourishing and maganda po yung labas. Ma'am Maylene Chavez, pag may mushroom po na tumubo sa compost bin, ano po ang ibig sabihin? That means po, it's fungi-based po. Hindi masyado marami, yung ginamit niyo po ng mga materials, most probably is woody or mga kahoy, wood chips. Fungi-based po yan. It's still good, but this is more for mga fruit-bearing trees. No? So, most probably, mga dahon na galing sa mga fruits yan. Fruit trees ang ginamit nyo sa compost nyo. But if microbe-based siya, and that's why we actually teach inoculation ng microbes para po sa vegetables. But it still works. Wala problema po yung mushrooms. Wag lang po yung yung maitim na mushroom. Medyo mas delikado po yan. Okay, we have another way of naninigurado para talagang maano natin. Good PM, Sir Kit. Okay. The effective microorganisms with molasses triggered the rapid decomposer. Yes po. Sa IMO po natin yan, no? I think previous student ko to online din. And additional question ko lang, what combination of the composted materials better result to use the basal and fertilized vegetable? Gamitin na po natin yung calculator na binigay ko. I'll give you an example tomorrow of yung kanina actually na pinakita natin, that's already good. That's 28. Grass clippings and nasa 28 po siya. So that was yesterday. How do we properly store finished manure or compost? You put it in a clean, dry, dark place. That's how you store it. So kung nakasako, dapat elevated siya para hindi mabasa. Naka-cover din naman po para hindi naman maulanan. Hindi direct sa sunlight initially so that any microbes that are still there will have magandang But if it's humus na po, talagang maganda na klase na po yung nagawa ninyo, then kahit nilagay nyo lang sa sako, as long as shaded lang po at hindi nababasa. That's how you properly store it. Sir, ano po bang pwede gawin sa byproduct namin na oil na related sa organic? Gumagawa kasi kami ng chicharon. Sir Edgar, PM is the key. Sabay ganun na. Pwede po yan gawin sa sir. Yan. So, pwede siyang gawing agricultural soap as a sticker. So, you just need one other component which is still organic. So, ganun lang po. As po, sir, about chicken manure composting. So, a video they add soil to manure to compost. Pwede ba yan? Yes po, pwede. Actually, nakita nyo po sa slides natin kanina, we actually add soil as well. But it does not, it would just be as an amendment, pagdagdag lang para mag-dry ka agad at para masip yung liquid, yung moisture niya. But it will not affect the release of the nutrients. Sir, yung 18-day period po ng composting, applicable po yan kahit sa anong kadaming volume or pang 1 cubic. It's all po, but you need to be able to turn it. That's why ang pinakamalaking ginagawa ko is up to 5 cubic lang. Kasi ang pagbaliktad niyan every other day babaliktarin niyo po. But that's rapid composting, and yes, you can minimum 1 cubic, maximum kung kaya mo kahit na 100 cubic kaya niyong baliktarin using a backhoe, walang problema po 'yan. Topic. There. Giving back to the soil. Yung Zoom link po natin, bago po So, may password po yan. Keep nyo na po. And hopefully, ma-message nyo si Ma'am Van that the one that was sent before for the third day, is not functional due to technical issues. So, paki-take note na lang rin po. So, is there a way to troubleshoot compost that has gone bad or discard na lang po? You can go ahead and discard, and you can go ahead and hashtag Soki, ayos yun. You can discard it, but you can still reprocess it. You can wet it again, wash it out. Ganun po yung style niyan. And redo. Pa-dry po natin and redo po. Okay, we have 100 sacks of burnt chicken manure. Is it advisable to use isabog sa soil? Yes, you can do that, Ma'am Marga. We've been discussing that po. You can do that. Problem lang is kung sumobra naman po. But if malaki yung area nyo, then yes, you can. I would suggest na 100 sacks, siguro at least mga 5 to 7 hectares nyo isabog. Sir, by batch lang po ba dapat ang paggawa ng compost? Yes. I would really suggest that we actually go ahead and do it by batch so that you would have a continuous supply of compost at hindi maubusan. Parami na parami. Ayaw nyo makipag-usap sa akin, ha? Gusto nyo mag-type at pahirapan ako maghanap. Examples po ng bacteria-rich compost. Bacteria-rich compost po is yung bacteria-rich compost is if you're able to inoculate, kasi ang hindi pa natin pinag-uusapan yung inoculation of bacteria in the compost. So, I'll be able to give you an example or that more tomorrow, sir. or when we discuss technology na po, no? Every kailan po ba mag-add ng material sa compost? Ma'am, depende po sa klase sa technique na ginagamit natin for this, Ms. Elaine, no? And usually, for the specific techniques, it will be discussed tomorrow. Kasi there are compost that we add, like an open pit. Meron naman compost na kailangan na-stack muna. Kasi depende sa design po. So it really depends on what type of technique that we will be following. Okay? So, it seems na wala nang tanong or blinak kayo ni Ma'am Ban, no? Alas 3 na po. Mabalos. Yes. Ang nakikita ko lang sa screen ko kasi isa lang eh. Ayaw nyo magpakita sa akin eh. Si Ma'am Bel, oh, smiling.
Sir, magandang hapon po, sir.
Okay, yun. Si Sir Aldin.
Sir, kung halimbawa po kung naararo na yung lupa and then naglagay po ng mga bed, parang ano ba yung tawag doon? Yung pagtataniman na,
Raised bed.
pwede
Okay.
po bang maghuhukay doon sa loob ng bed, saka lalagyan ng chicken manure?
Yes
Bago
po,
tataniman?
pwede po yan. Ang tawag po dyan, yan po ay yung isang process po na
Thank you very much. Mga sa
distribute.
isang hektarya, sir.
1 hectare po, sir. Kasi I'm not just saying na kailangan
Sa
natin,
isang
Sir Aldin.
hektarya, sir, mga gaano karami?
Gaano karami? Around 20 sacks of
20
wood compost.
Opo. Salamat, sir. Salamat po.
Yung una po ha, kung if you've been using it, pababa po kasi yan. But initially, I would suggest 20. And there's additional preparation pa po dyan. Okay?
Sa start po, mga 20, then i-reduce kada magdadagdag lang.
Per cropping po yung practice namin.
Okay.
I would suggest po if we have the natural farming webinar, if you can attend that, meron po tayong mga steps po kasi na tinuturo doon kung kailan at ano yung pag-prepare ng lupa.
Okay, sige po.
Kasi mas in-depth po yan.
May kasunod pong seminar para doon?
Meron po tayong isi-schedule for September, I think. Kasi this is a series of seminars po kasi yung ginagawa natin that are interrelated.
Yes, sir. Thank you po. Sana mabigyan din kami ng information doon para makasali po ulit. Salamat po.
Like and follow and share na lang po ng Agritech webinar.
Sige po.
Nasa page po yan.
Okay, sige po.
Okay, so I think si Sir Abrea, I've already answered some questions. And other than that, may mga last na pahabol. I'll just answer 2 more questions, no? Yes, exotic releases toxic. Okay, hindi ko maano. Joey Salazar, may question po. At saka si Sir Lawrence, naging acidic po ba talaga ang lupa ng mahogany tree? Kung tama, ay pwede ba gamitin dahon sa composting? Yes, and yes. To answer it po, and para masagot na rin Sir Joey, no? Clarification. Yung mahogany po kasi is sa sobrang taas ng nitrogen niya, nagiging toxic na po. So since sa sobrang taas ng nitrogen ng ating mahogany, toxic na po yung ang ating nitrogen level. Kasi katulad na yan ng oxygen, no? Pag binigyan kita ng pure oxygen at ipapalanghap ko sa iyo, malulunod ka. Asphyxiation na tawag dyan. Kaya nga po na makikita nyo sa mga hospital, may bubbler po yung oxygen. Hindi katulad ng acetylene, no? Yung pang-welding, walang bubbler. Kaya po pinapabula muna sa tubig kasi hindi naman po pure yung nilalanghap natin na oxygen. So it's same with nitrogen. If it is too much, anything too much is not good anymore. So nagiging toxic na po. But if you compost it properly, yung ating na decompose and not compose siya properly ang ating dahon na mahogany, is it will work. And to prove that, isa sa mga pictures nga po na pinakita ko, one thing that I'm actually showing is a place na kung saan kami nagturo ng composting. Ilalim actually ng mahogany, and mahogany leaves ang ginamit. I'm just looking for that specific picture, no? Kasi a lot of people are saying hindi pwede, but it actually is pwede if you know the right process and what to add. Kasi kung hindi po siya tama yung proseso, yan. Ito pong first picture, that's mahogany. Ilalim po yun ng mahogany leaves. So, yes, mataas din po yung lignin content na mahogany. So, matagal. Kaso lang, if you add secret ingredients, katulad ng microbial solutions that we actually teach in natural farming as well as in JADAM, then this can be processed. Yan po, mahogany po yung nasa first picture. Okay? So, yan po. Finish mo natin. Facebook.com/FarmTechWebinar. You can see all our webinars na available po sa FarmTech there, no? And if you follow the page, then of course, lalabas at lalabas yan sa feed. We're planning to do more webinars na interrelated lang po para you can expand your learnings. Okay, so seems na okay na tayo. It's already 3 o'clock. I'd like to thank everyone for attending again, no, sa second day po natin ng ating webinar. For additional questions po, feel free to really just contact me. Meron tayong mga wag lang po kayo tumawag while nasa tayo, no, webinar, at hindi ko sasagutin. But if I receive a text message like what Sir Abrea did, then walang problema po. I'd be happy to answer it. So thank you very much po, and you all have a blessed day. See you tomorrow.
Thank you, sir.
Bye-bye. Yes, Ma'am Van, go ahead.
Yes, I would like to remind everybody lang regarding dun sa ating day 3, no? Kasi baka tomorrow may mga mag-chat na bakit di ako makapasok, ganun. So if you cannot save the link po right now, feel free to message na lang FarmTech, no po, para ma-send po namin agad sa inyo. Anyway, that's 1 p.m. Same time naman po tayo tomorrow. And yung mga naghahanap ng PowerPoint presentation, it's already uploaded. Andyan na po ang link. Pag hindi nyo man ma-save yan, nandun din po yan sa messenger nyo the time na nag-register kayo ng composting. Right? So,
si Ma'am Van, papadalhan ako ng link kasi tamad ako maghanap bukas.
Sure, basta po, PM lang. Yes sir, I think na-send na ni Ma'am Jen. Or sabihan ko siya kung di pa na-send sa'yo, no, yung link.
Okay.
Kung ibang participants, just PM lang po sa page ha kung wala po kayong, kung hindi nyo po ma-save. Para po tomorrow, dire-diretso po tayo.
Okay, so kita-kits po tayo lahat bukas. Thank you po with all our participants. We reached more than 80 today, no? So kita-kits po tayo, and thank you once again. Have a blessed day.
Sir Keith.
Bye.
Thank you, Sir Keith. All right, bye-bye.
Welcome.